Okay guys, so we're here to talk about the hypocrisy that just happens in fandoms, but more specifically we're focusing on the huge stuff that happens within the confines of the MCU. Now, you've all heard this one before. Let's enter Marvel Phase 2. So of course Phase 2 consists of all the movies after the Avengers. So I am of course talking about Iron Man 3, Thor the Dark World, Captain America the Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers Age of Ultron, and of course Ant-Man. Now, given after the Avengers, there was going to be a huge amount of fans that wanted to see more crossover, but the movies had to be dealt with in a certain way. We saw Iron Man 3 was more of a personal story that takes just a few days to actually tell. And then of course with Thor the Dark World, we saw a completely different movie where he was on Earth for only a matter of minutes. Captain America the Winter Soldier was of course probably the biggest crossover quote unquote out of all of these, which included the Black Widow and of course the huge first time appearance of Falcon. Guardians of the Galaxy was a standalone movie for better or for worse, depending on how you look at it, although it did set up the huge, plot with the Infinity Stones and Thanos and all that. And then there was, of course, Avengers Age of Ultron, the big crossover. And then there was Ant-Man, which did have the Falcon in it. So out of all of these movies, the only legitimate ones that you could complain about not having other characters appear in would, I guess, be Iron Man 3 and Thor the Dark World. And of course, if we go back to that day and time, everybody was complaining about why isn't Captain America showing up to help Iron Man? Why isn't the Hulk showing up? Why doesn't Thor show up? Why doesn't this character show up? And that was pretty much one of the big things. People were like, well, that's terrible. And then there was Thor the Dark World, and people were like, well, why doesn't Iron Man show up to help him when he's on Earth for those few minutes? Or why doesn't this happen? Why doesn't S.H.I.E.L.D. monitor all this? Which was explained in Captain America the Winter Soldier, of course, Hydra and everything, but this was all the big complaints that was happening. Now we've entered Phase 3, where we're actually getting more of these things. So far in Phase 3, we've had Captain America Civil War, which was a huge crossover movie. This was more or less an Avengers movie. No one complained about all these characters up in there because the movie worked successfully. Doctor Strange was largely standalone. Of course, it did have Thor show up. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, once again, a largely standalone movie. And the next one is Spider-Man Homecoming, but also after that we have Thor Ragnarok, we have Black Panther, Infinity War, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Captain Marvel, and a fourth Untitled Avengers movie. Now, for the purposes of this video, we're going to be largely talking about Spider-Man Homecoming and Thor Ragnarok. And this is the part of the video where we actually start the video and I say, what the hell has happened? So, literally Phase 2, if you go look at it, everybody was complaining about every movie there isn't a bunch of crossovers in, about why the heroes aren't crossing over and helping each other. Now we've come to Phase 3, where heroes are starting to pop up in each other's movies. Thor is going to have a major plot point that deals with Planet Hulk, and Hulk is going to be the secondary most important character in the movie. And suddenly people are hating on it, saying, give us more Thor. Yet in Thor the Dark World, they just wanted cameos. Spider-Man Homecoming, the way the character has to be handled is he can't be old, because that means he would have already existed, and if you give us an old Peter Parker, you would once again run into that territory of everybody going, well, he's out of high school, and that's the most important part about Peter Parker. And don't say you won't, because if we look at the people complaining about the comics, that's all they're doing at the same time, so you can't give or take. So now that characters are appearing in each other's movies more, now these same contingents of fans that wanted it in Phase 2 absolutely hate it in Phase 3. And I'm here to just ask why the hypocrisy suddenly out of nowhere and what has changed. So I'm legitimately trying to find out why this is all the new thing. Why is it to go back on what you're saying, what you're complaining about, and then completely change your state of mind? Because let's be real, just like the past Spider-Man series, The Amazing Spider-Man, if we were to get another Spider-Man movie in New York and not a single character from the Avengers shows up, mainly the character that lives there who has a giant tower there, Tony Stark, people will be complaining they want to see it. Especially that he's the character that brought him into Civil War. So wouldn't it just make sense that this character is going to be there? Almost a godlike figure in this godlike giant tower looking down on everybody, trying to keep an eye on his young pupil? Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just asking too much, but I guess story contingency and plans. I guess only I like them if they make sense. Maybe. I mean, I would love to see why people are complaining, because God knows when they announce that Black Panther isn't going to have Captain America appear in it, people are going to flip out.